you to say hi in the chat window and the monitor screen to come up. It always takes me like 30 seconds to get started. Who is bleeping my blips? I don't need to deal with that right now. La 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 la. How you doing? That over there. All right, so let's get this monitor screen up. Today we are going to start escaping the 8-bar loop. Thanks for joining me. I hope you're having a pretty kind of all right, decent time in quarantine. You know, it's like a weird situation that we're in on planet Earth, but fortunately, if we can pick out the old silver lining from the cloud, we do have some time to spend on creative stuff. And I want to have a routine going on for myself, especially because I need it, but maybe for you too, to do a little bit of creative stuff every day. So I'm going live, teaching lessons, putting it out there. This is what I got. You can be part of it. And we are going to work on how to take your ideas and turn them into complete tracks. It's really easy to start a new idea with Ableton. It's like way too easy. And then you're like, oh, you know, I'll finish that track later, or I'll turn it into something eventually. And then, you know, you end up with like 20 million unfinished tracks on your computer. And that's not really the ideal situation, because it is fun to play with Ableton like a video game, but we do want to get something out of it at the end of the day and have a piece of music that we can get mastered and publish or play live at a gig or share with people or just use in a mix set and, you know, make it so people can hear it. So where are we? There is the video. Cool. Let me know, how's my vocal level and music? Give me a yes if you can hear me and audio. Okay, I got your comments up there. Andy May, what's going on? Dan Pratt, what's up? Daniel Ivanov, and a bunch of other people coming in. Cool. So just give me a quick yes if you can hear me and the music, and we're gonna go full screen. La 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 la. All right, here's my session. And what am I talking about? Escaping the 8-bar loop. Okay, so you know, you can make an idea, and usually in live, what happens with me is I start with something like a bass line and a beat, or actually I start with a tempo even, and then a beat and a bass line. So let's say I had this idea. So I started with a beat and a bass line. Gabor is here. Hey, yes, all right, cool. Thanks for saying yes. That's helpful for me, so I know that you can see me. Anytime you have a question, type it in, and I will see your questions and comments on the Facebook chat. Okay, so the Mix It Texture Facebook group, I'm seeing questions. If you're on YouTube right now, I can't monitor those at the same time, so I can see your comments later and get back to you, but this is kind of for like the Facebook group. So that's what's going on. And the way I build tracks is a lot like how I started making music with the MPC 2000, where I'd have a loop, and then I'd sample something, and then I'd listen for a while, then I'd get bored, and I'd feel like, okay, there's an empty space, I want to add something else. And then I'd get another sound or another sample or another layer or another track and add it in there and stack it up. So as I got farther into my composition, I would get more pieces of it coming together, and it would start to, you know, add in little things, maybe like this. So now I got some chords bouncing. And then I'd hang out and listen for a while, and I'd be like, well, maybe I want another part. Let's put in another little bass line thing. And I'd go on like that and hang out and be chilling and listening, and, you know, maybe I'd like tweak the mix a little bit or EQ the sounds a little bit. And maybe I'd think, okay, so, you know, I want to have a peak in this track, right? What's going to happen then? So I put in some cymbals. Maybe I want to have a build-up. And maybe another sound. So all I'm trying to do right now is illustrate. Hey, Jason, Mark Pritchard, what's going on? So far what I'm doing is illustrating that in the process of making music with live, it's really easy to add a whole bunch of sounds and end up with a bunch of loops. Right now, it's like, you know, kind of like an 8-bar loop. Hasn't really gone anywhere. Absolutely zero in the arrangement, in the timeline, and we're not going to even touch the timeline today. In fact, I'm going to delete that little marker. But what I am going to do is grab these new sounds, and I want to put them into one scene. All right. And what I want to do is get organized, really. So the first thing we need to do is get organized so I can find my sounds and work with them without getting lost. Paul, hey, Paul says, hey, Steve, what's cool? Shubham Paul, cool. So this is not really such an organized session right now. There's lots of layers, there's lots of experiments. I have like, what does this scene sound like? Oh, there's some different synths in there. Do I want to lose that part? No, I don't. So I've got different ideas scattered all over the place. I've got different combinations. And of course, I've got different colors and different sounds. I don't even know what is going on in this situation. So what I want to introduce to you first is a technique for getting organized so that when we want to build out our song structure, we can find everything easily, quickly, not get confused, not waste any time, not get frustrated. And at the end of the day, I want to be able to mix this without getting totally lost. So the first thing I'm going to introduce is called bus groups. And to make those, we're going to add a couple of new tracks. And the value of bus groups, it really helps a lot. Like, let's say, for example, I want to mix my different drum groups, right? So I have this stuff down here. And if I want to find all my drums, I got to go like this and solo 3 different things. And then if I'm trying to mix them over here on the master channel, oh my gosh, I've got like a limiter and a compressor on here. What are my stereo drums even doing? I got some inside of a group over here. And so if I wanted to mix my stereo drums, instead of soloing them, the better way to do it would be like, maybe I'll just mute all my synths, right? So I got to go and mute like all these channels at once. And so, okay, now I have everything else muted and I can sort of like mix my drums if I wanted to, but that was kind of annoying for me. What if I have 30 channels in the session? What if I have 50 channels? What if I'm working on a vocal pop track and I have 150 channels where there's multiple overdubs of vocals and, you know, all these different parts? Like, you don't want to go and mute 100 different channels just to get to a drum group, and you don't want to solo everything and then be kind of like hearing the solo bus instead of the mix group, you know? The more your sessions get bigger, the harder it is to organize stuff. So we're going to just make this easy right now and make a stereo group called drums right here. And I want to know that's a stereo group, so I'm going to color it green. And it's going to be a bus group, so we got to send the input output routing. We got to fix that up a little bit. So first input, set to no input. Now what's going to go into my drum group? Well, everything that is a percussion sound is going to go into the drum group, and I'm going to make it green. That's so that when I'm scanning through here, left and right, like if I have a big session, everything's all expanded, and horizontally I'm getting, you know, like left, right, kind of like a lot of space taken up. Now I know everything that's green is going to be a drum sound, and to make sure that's actually going to the right place, instead of going to the master group, I'm going to send these all to the drums bus. Okay, so I said audio out, audio 2, going to drums. To make this even more clear, let's call it drums bus. So I know it's not an effect, it's not anything else. It's a drums bus. How's that sound? I don't hear it. Why don't I hear it? Answer, the reason I don't hear it is because you have to set the monitoring to input. So let's just bring that volume down so I don't get my head blasted. And there we go. Now I have all my drums in one place. If I want to hear only the drums group, I could solo that. It'll get even easier. And then if I want to figure out, oh, you know, how does this sound if I stereo, you know, spread out the field like that? I easily have that whole stereo mix right here in the drums group. Samir Joshi, what's up, man? Hey, thanks for joining. Charles Franco's here. Toby Williams. Cool. Piv Clip, hope you're feeling better, man. Been thinking about you because you said you had a cold. I hope everybody's healthy, honestly. I'm feeling healthy. Thank goodness for that. So let's keep going and make a couple other groups. My synths are already here inside one nice little group, but you know, there's another synth sound that's over here like this. And, oh, what's this? Resampling beats? You know what? I think that might belong in the drum group. See, I already made a mistake. Already getting confused. Getting a little lost. Don't want things all over the place. My idea here is I want to have percussion all in one place. So anything that's drums is going to be in this bus over here. This is going to be my instrument bus. And let's make it light blue because I don't want to look at that pink color. Process. You make a new audio track, okay? So you can do it from this context menu. Insert audio track. You can do the key command, Command T. You could do it from push where you add a track. Any way you do it, add a new audio track, set it to no input, and you need the monitoring like this one to be on in. So this track will let you hear anything coming in. We're using this bus to collect a bunch of sounds from someplace else, And my synth leads are going to go to the instrument bus. Let's take a listen. Does that sound right? I can't hear it. How come? Oh, now I can set it to monitor in. Well, that's a bass sound. That counts as instrument. And remember, I'm going to color code these. I don't care what color you use. You don't have to color code it because you can't hear the colors. But the advantage here is that now I know that everything that's blue is going to be in my instrument sound group. And let me set all my effects to master for now so we don't have those getting in the way. We'll get to the effects in a little bit. Don't worry about that, but I'll mute them for now. So now I have an instrument bus, and when it's time to work on the drums, I can easily mute all those synths, just like that. So instead of going in here and muting like this group and finding, oh, what am I hearing? Why is something in the way? Well, I gotta mute that. Instead of having to hunt around and find all the channels and mute them one by one, I can grab my whole instrument group at once right here and mute everything. What do you hear that's still not in the group? This is a question. Give me an answer real quick while I'm taking a sip of coffee. What sound is not in a group yet? That was a little clue. The sound we don't have in a group yet is the low bass. So I'm going to call this the sub bass. And you know me, I'm always playing around with spectrum analyzers. There's a picture of our low bass line. You can see most of the energy is happening down here at 60 hertz and below. So that's going to work for our sub. Daniel says the bass. That's right. Yep. Sub bass. Why do we want this in a different place? How come I'm not putting this in the instrument group? Little question for you. Sometimes I really wish we were hanging out in person because I want to just ask you a question and be able to answer without waiting 45 seconds for the time lag on the chat window. But why do I mean, it makes sense if that's a bass, right? I should put it in the instrument group, right? Why am I not putting it in the instrument group? Vladut, hello, Persina. Interesting name. I wonder where you're from. Where are you from, Vladut? So, in order to keep this moving, I'm going to tell you the answer. I want to have a separate bus group for my mono low stuff. Mono, Jason, got it. Yeah, exactly. Cool. I knew that answer was coming in. So my instrument group, I want to have some stereo width in here. Maybe I'm going to use that new chorus effect from the Tal chorus that I just sent out in the email. Maybe I want to use some stereo widening. Maybe I want to put reverb on this whole instrument bus. I don't know, but what I do want to have is a nice, heavy, deep, low sub-bass group. I'm going to make it purple because that's how I feel about sub-bass. So I'm going to make this one purple, and I'm going to send audio to mono lows, set the monitor to input, and I disable this audio in. And by the way, if you're ever working on a session with like 40 tracks, 50 tracks, it's a really good idea to disable your external input on the inputs of your audio tracks, because this will switch off your conversion from your audio interface and free up some RAM. You don't want to have your audio interface constantly calculating like, oh, how much sound is coming through here, how much, you don't make your computer brain process audio inputs if you're not using them. Take all your audio tracks, set them to no input, and you'll free up a little space. So now we have 3 bus groups, and I got my whole mix under control right here. I got the lows, and quite possibly in the future, I'd say there's going to be a kick drum in here. So I have my whole low end in mono. I can EQ it, I can compress it, I can squash it with a limiter. Whatever I want to do, I can make that low end sound dope right there in that bus group. And then separately, I can work with my drums here. I can drop in, EQ, compression, reverb, whatever, all in one place. And my whole synth group, I can do EQ, compression, reverb, flanger, filter, whatever I want to do. I got all my buses, all my instruments set up together. This is a massive advantage for mixing. You don't need to go into like multi-band compression surgery on your stereo mix if you start out by grouping your sounds and processing them ahead of time. So like if you get a stereo mix and you're working on your track and you're like, oh, I want to do some mid-side EQ because my low end I have stereo at 100 hertz and it's messing me up. Don't even put yourself in that situation. This might sound like a mixing tutorial, but believe it or not, this is going to make your life a lot easier when we go into the composition phase where I want to work on developing my beats towards a build-up. I got them all right here. Okay, now I'm done with that. I want to develop the climax, the peak, make sure that my lead, my chords, my synths are all working together. I got them all right here. I don't have to go hunting around. I don't have to go looking for them. I don't have any of this stuff with tracks titled like, you make a new track, it's like 12 audio, 13 audio, audio 75 untitled. None of that is going on. All my tracks are labeled and color-coded so I know what's on each channel, where they are going, and how I can easily grab them without having to mute 20 tracks by hand, without having to solo a whole bunch of them and wrestle against the volume of the solo bus over here. It makes it so much easier when you just get organized and get all your things in one place so you have your 8-bar loop and you can work with it. Now let me read this question from Andy May. General question. I saw for a moment that the bus group was showing a bluish color on the meter. Oh, error in the routing. Yeah. That's when stuff is routed to a place that doesn't exist. So if I delete the mono lows, watch the VU meters on track 1. If I delete this bus group, that turns blue because there's nothing, it's not going anywhere. Live automatically changed it, audio to sends only, which means we're not really hearing it. So maybe I can just undo that. Mono lows. And there we are. So if you see your VU meters turning blue like that, it's like basically you have a sound with no output that you're not hearing. You said you ran into that in one of the modules and fixed it with the routing. Was it module 1? I think I set that module up to be an exercise where you have to do the routing to solve that problem. I hope we're talking about the same thing. Jason said, the organization and color coding is such a pain in the ass, but it is so important, and I'm glad when I do it. Yeah, man, I know what you mean. Sessions that are out of control, it just makes it harder and harder and harder. Your problems multiply and get compounded when your stuff is disorganized, and the longer it goes on like that, the worse it is when it comes to building out your tracks. So now that we have a routing system we can work with, and we've got our tracks organized in one place, let me skip up to the top and show you what I got to work with as my basic music to start with. And I can't handle this super ugly red color with green. It looks like some awful Christmas. All right, so I wanted to get down to basically stripping out all this extra stuff. This was my experimental page, right? All these different clips. I was fooling around. I was playing with different combinations, and I was thinking, which scenes, how am I going to make a track out of this? What sounds good together? Maybe I'll play a couple examples. So this one says CH for chorus. Okay, there's one. How about this one? It says main. Okay, we already heard that. What about that? Okay, so that's, there's no drums in this section. That's kind of interesting. There's a long melody lead there. Slightly different variation here. So now what I want to do is catch all my ideas, get them in one place so I'm not afraid of losing anything, because I'm actually going to delete all this stuff. Believe it or not, we're going to press the delete key. It's terrifying. So what I did was I took that idea up there and these clips and made copies of them all the way up at the top of the session. I'm going to call this my A section, call this my B section, and that's all I need now. So I've got like a groove, kind of like the verse, ba 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 ba, chorus. A little more melodic, cymbals are crashing, more chords happening, the bass line changes. It's like more developed, you know, you can kind of be like, all right, this is the like la 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 la, and back to the verse. And maybe next time I want the verse without those chords. So we got options to play around different stuff. Vladut, question, I finished organizing my tracks and now I want to mix them. Can you show us an example of how to widen some sounds? Answer, no. I love the question, but we're not going to do that in this mix because that's really not part of Escape the 8-bar loop. I got to stay focused on one thing at a time or else I'll go off in a million directions. We are definitely going to do that, and that'll happen probably next week in some mixing stuff. But for this week, we're gonna do escaping the 8-bar loop, and I'm gonna show you how I take each of these clips and develop them completely to make a series of ideas that sound like a full track. So what I did so far, just to review this whole day so far, we took our different channels, put them physically next to each other, right? So all the synths are blue and they're all right in one spot. All the drums are green up here and they are all together. And then the low end is going to be purple. So notice I have purple, blue, or green and blue. And then my bus groups go purple, green, and blue. And then we did the input-output routing so I can grab each group as one unit and work with them. Now we're working into the session view part. I established two scenes we call A and B. I'm just going to make those a little bit of a different gray color so I remember that's what they are. And now, terrifying moment, delete. I'm making extra space for everything else I want to build after this because my experimental phase is done. Oh, Pedro says, yeah, Vlado, add a utility and increase the stereo width. Sure, that's a good answer. You can do that. There are some good, quick ways to do widening. And I'm sorry to say no to your question because I like the question, but I want to keep moving with this. As for staying organized, I hope you can see the top of this. It says connect, escape the 8-bar loop, sketch. So I have a song title that's titled Sketch. It's a good idea to save a backup copy at this point so that you don't totally, so you don't lose something important, all right? So I got a backup right there. Now the one that's called Sketch is going to have all the session, that whole big session view, and the one that's called Backup is this new one. We can make a couple of tracks for empty space, but we don't really need to because I'll show you another way of making tracks. And now we're basically done with the organizing session. We've got our stuff labeled in one place, all where we want it. And I've got the 8-bar loop ready to work with. So look what's happening here with this bass clip. It's a 16-bar loop, and there's 8 bars at the end. Now after 5 bars it went down to that note. There's some effects in there. So what I did here was I made a clip where there's something happening that's changing over time, so that I can play this loop, but it doesn't stay the same for all 16 bars. It starts off on one note, it goes down to a different note, there's some effects popping in there, and it's interesting. It's changing over time, or there is some variation. So one of the key principles we want to do, I'm even going to type this down, type this in here. Variation and repetition. Oh, with caps lock on. How do you create length? Variation and repetition. Let me go back to full screen for, hey, what's happening? So 23, 25 minutes in here. I want to keep this as short as I can so you have some compact action stuff to do. So the idea we're working with is taking an 8-bar loop and making it longer to be a full track. We're creating length, you know what I mean? Like extending it over time. How do we keep it interesting? Variation and repetition. This is especially cool with electronic music because it's so repetitive. You don't even have to really like make up a wild bunch of new ideas. You just take the stuff you were doing before and repeat it in a new way. Traditionally in composition, variation and repetition, it would be like you have your melody and then you have an opposing theme and then maybe you take like one of the inner voices and put that in the melody and take the melody and put it in the bass line and there's all this like voice leading choral music kind of stuff. We don't really have to worry about that. We can be like, I'm gonna mute a hi-hat, 8 bars. Now I'm gonna open it back up again, add another hi-hat, 8 bars. And you get a really cool track that develops over time just by muting and unmuting layers. So if I had a drum machine, I could be like, playing through with a little blinks on the pattern sequencer and like activate a new pattern, mute a different pattern. It could be as simple as that. Or if I had a hardware synth and I'm doing like, an Electribe and like a Juno or whatever, like a Roland synth, maybe a whole song section could be just, you grab a cutoff filter, bring it all the way down with like a low pass filter and then roll it back up. And that could be 16 bars of really interesting sound because it catches people's ear, they hear something changing, it's developing over time, and leading up to a climax. Maybe you cut the kick drum out, build up your filter sweep, drop the kick drum back in, and that could be all you need for a build up and a drop. So it could be on analog channels where you're like muting, you got your mix on analog and muting it. It could be on push where you're muting tracks and doing volumes, or it could be just in live with your mouse and everything. But the point I'm trying to make is Session View has everything you need to make really interesting music without using the arrangement. So let me dive back in. I wanted to make a point that we're not we're not going to take all these things and go into, you know, the timeline and like put some symbols here and put some symbols there and put some symbols there and drop a marker over here and like, oh, I'm going to copy this template of, okay, you know, the verse is here, then the drop is here, then the break. Like, I don't make music that way. I don't think it's that exciting. There are times when I have done it that way and it's possible and it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But for me, the timeline is a really visual thing that's kind of like watching TV. And the thing I always fall into that makes it a problem is that when I'm watching the timeline and I'm watching the mouse go by and the cursor's going, like when there's something coming up and I can see it, I'm expecting it. So then emotionally I feel like it's supposed to happen there. But in fact, that could be not what's right for the music and the people in the room. Like people at a show are not going to see your timeline and they're not going to know what's coming up. They're only going to know what they hear and what they feel. So for me, the reason I work in session view is that it's a lot more fluid and natural to go with scenes where I can kind of like play the scene, feel what has to happen, and then change it on the spot. So let me show you a little example of this, and that might be it for today. So we're in this A section. And remember we had this bass loop, right? Now I want something else to come in. I just launched the clip. And maybe when this bass line goes into that later loop, I want that chord thing to come out. So the chords drop out. This would be a great place for some lyrics where the mid-range chords are gone. The MC would have more space to be on the beat. And then for some emphasis, make it a little more dramatic, you could put the crash on there. And then to get rid of that crash, I grabbed an EQ, cut the high end out, and brought it to an end at the end of the phrase and stopped it. So now the loop is going on. Oh, little lead melody coming in. Cut the beats out, let this lead hang in the air, and then hit the chorus part. So what I'm doing right now is kind of talking through how I'd get from one song section to the next by firing clips, launching clips, muting channels, playing with some live effects, and that can be enough to make a whole song. Maybe at the end of this, I want to cut the beats out and go back, right? Aha, the power of the drum bus. And then right there, I can drop those two back in. I was a little tiny bit late because I'm using one hand on the mouse instead of using controllers. But that's another good example of how much fun it is to use bus groups. You can just cut stuff and have a really easy way to do a live mix with only a couple of controls. So I could put my push controller over here and work only with the volumes on the bus groups instead of, you know, trying to do it by hand. Fade that down, fade it back up, whatever you want to do. If you have any questions, let me know. This would be a good time. It's about 12:30. I'm not going to go too much farther in this one. I wanted to show you how to get your session organized and how valuable it is to have your stuff put together in bus groups and make backups so that psychologically you can delete everything else, make some space for creating new tracks with empty space. And I realized I made a little bit of a mistake here. This channel is called Resampling Beats. It had a kind of a build-up sound, and I accidentally deleted it. So I'm going to have to get that back from my backup session. Should I go looking through that right now? Group live videos, spring 2020, escape the 8-bar loop, connect. There's my sketch session. There's my red rainbow speedy ball. All right, resampling beats. There's that audio track. And reverse build-up is the name of the clip. So I'm just going to drag that over here, get that back, and maybe I'll grab the long version in case I want to play with that. I didn't even do that on purpose, but that's the value of saving a backup copy. The one that I titled Sketch. See, now we're working in with the backup. The one that I titled Sketch had my backup clip. So when you forget and you delete something, now I got it back. So when I'm ready to go towards the drop, I'll let that play through. 1, 2, 3, 4, bow. And we're into the chorus. Dan Pratt. So I've watched this before and I'm a huge fan of getting from loop to track this way. However, sometimes it doesn't work in my flow because as a piano player, some of my loops start before the downbeat. And I haven't got a handle on clip launching to accommodate that, so I end up composing in the arrangement anyway. View. Super techie question. Well, that is a bit of a techie question, yeah. Sometimes you can do something like make another, let's say I wanted to start this melody clip. Okay, let's see if I can handle this. You can drag the start marker later in the clip so that it starts kind of at the end. Or how would I do this? If I wanted to start before the downbeat. Okay, first crop that clip and then reactivate these notes, right? I want to start that on beat 4 of this one. And then play through from here. So we're going to make a scene with this stuff. So you can have the pickup note happen at the end of a previous bar. Wait, I didn't quite do that right. Okay, yeah. Now I'll mute all these. So this melody line, which is part of the chorus, it's going to start here. It's going to play through like 2 bars of silence and then hit the pickup note at the end. So basically you make another clip in the previous scene where everything is muted until you have the pickup notes that lead into the next bar. 1, 2, Did you hear that? We hit the pickup note right at the end and it went into the next melody part. Bow, ba, 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 ba. Let me do that one more time. So this melody starts up here, ba-da-bop, and the pickup note, which was before the downbeat, I put it in the scene previously and muted. So I basically I made a new clip with empty space beforehand. The end of that loop, which is like in still our A section, has the lead-in notes for the melody, and then in the next section, basically I'm starting on the downbeat and not starting on those pickup notes. Let me know if that makes sense. Oh, I see a yeah, 3 exclamation points. Yeah, man. That is how I would solve that problem. And there's some other fun stuff you can do with legato mode on your clip to make sure the clip continues when you play it to the next one. Yeah, Dan, you're making some cool chill out music too. I dig your the ending piano part of that last track you put up was fun. So I wanted to hear it go back into the beat after that piano part. Did I say everything I wanted to do? Yeah, I just went through a couple of mistakes and some problem solving, so I accidentally had deleted a couple clips. I got them back from my backup session over in the user library in the browser. What did we do today? We organized our channels. We got everything labeled so I can look at a track and know what is on that channel. I got them color-coded and put into bus groups so I can easily find all the different sounds when I want to and get rid of the ones that are in the way when it's time to, do some mixing. And we made a low group. So maybe the last thing I'll do, this is just kind of like for myself for fun here. I was thinking I might want to copy this. This is an audio channel, right? Is it possible to make this kick drum insanely huge and have it be the only bass line? What am I saying? A mono kick drum that's like by itself with no breakbeat kind of sound. So let's drag it over here. Kind of going back into the sound design world right now. I'm going in the reverse order. I like to do my sound design first, get done with it, and move on to song composition and stuff. But since I made a mono bus and it has nothing in it but sub bass, let's give it some company and call this kick drum. How's that for a creative title? I'm gonna stop everybody else. What would I do to make a kick drum clip? I'm gonna color it purple so I don't get confused, so I definitely know what's going on. I don't wanna make another mistake like this where I deleted my resampling beats, and that's dangerous because if you delete it and then save your session, you don't know where it went. That audio file could be somewhere lost in your samples folder and you might never find it again. So, okay, kick drum. A little bit of a clackety kind of sound. Let's go straight for some tools. I want the bump bump. Don't need that pickup on there. Might need a little more of that one. And to make sure I don't have any clicks, let's just bend those a little bit. This takes me back to the sample edit days on the MPC where you had to trim up and zoom in and get tiny trimmed in on the beginning of the sample so that you don't have clicks and pops happening. And what I'm doing right now is I'm holding down the Alt key, the modifier, or Option on Mac, Alt on PC, and then move the mouse up and down to make a little curve. I don't know if you can hear that at the end of that. There's a little bit of a click, so let's ramp that down. And this is a fun trick too. In the warping mode, you set it to transients, make it so they go forward and not forward back loop. And now this 100 number is going to let me shorten the length of audio we hear. Oh, sweet. I got some stuff to undo over here. Oh, I even have a spectrum on there. All right, utility mono. I like that. Leave that on there. Let's hear what our natural sound sounds like. Ew. And what's the spectrum doing? All right, that low bump down there is the one I want. Let's say we're going to put it around 50. We're definitely going to EQ some garbage out of the middle of this one. So first, let's auto filter up to just about 50 hertz with a little resonant bump to get the lows. You can see already that auto filter took out that low chunk and added a little bump. And now EQ madness. Bow, 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 bow. Turn up my headphones. Time for some search and destroy on the EQs. Device EQ8, band 2. Let's go to band 3 to start with. Band 3 on. What I'm doing is I like to call it search and destroy bad frequencies. I hear this kind of boop 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 bop bop right there. Do you hear that? Ah ah ah. Do not want that in my kick drum, so I'm going to notch that way out. Let's find another one of those. Let's go to band 4. Switch it on. When you're in kick drums, you can almost always find something around 600 that sounds gross. That's what I'm cutting out. Ew. It's already getting thumpier. Let's go to band 5, pull up a little bit of a click. Oh God, what am I doing? It's okay to have some high end on your kick drum. It doesn't have to be all sub. As long as you cut before you boost. Vladut, how can we make an intro and an outro for our songs? That's a really good question. The answer is to delete parts, okay? So here's our A section. And Usually at the intro, we don't have the beats, so I'm gonna mute that. We don't even have the main bass line, so I'm gonna mute that. And I think we could even strip it down even more. So the answer to how to make an intro is identify one sound you want to start with. So I have this with only this one clip playing in here. Now I'm going to hit, if you have push, you can hit the duplicate button. And if you don't, you can go to the create menu, do capture and insert scene, which is going to make a new scene with only that clip playing. I muted that kick drum experiment because I wanted to answer your question. That's a great question. So now we can title this one intro, and let's pull it up to the top. This is kind of getting a little ahead of what I wanted to teach so far, but I don't care. I like the question because it pertains to escaping the 8-bar loop. So intro is now like this. And after you have that on there, you decide, well, what's going to be the next sound that comes in? How about a build-up to give a signal that something's coming? And I know that's going to work, so I'm going to select the intro scene and do capture and insert again. That's up here, Shift Command I, and I'm going to do the key command because I like it. So now what we're doing is beginning a way to play through these different scenes to play the song. So the intro is not going to be one scene. It's going to be a couple of scenes that's going to arrive at the first drop. Let's go through them. 3, 4, 2. Count in your head. 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3. Let it go 8 bars. Why not? 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 8. 2. Now we're going to let this roll and feel it. And at the right moment, I think we're going to drop the main bass line and the bass line and beat together. Like that. And now I want to keep that because I like that combination. I've got chords from this scene up here. I've got beats from down here and bass line from over there. So instead of letting those be in a disorganized place on different scenes, because right now if I press down here and launch a different scene, oh, what combination was that? I can't remember. I lost it. Oh, I got the bass line, but what else is in there? So we want to have the chords, the bass line, and this beat layer. Select that scene, do capture and insert again, and now we've got drop 1. So as I'm ready to play my track, let's say I'm at a show, right? And I'm like, okay, going into a song, let's launch this scene. 2, 2, 3, 4, build up, 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 up. I rushed that a little bit. At the end of this build up, we're going to drop the beat. 2, 3, 4. And then we're into it. And now as we're cruising along, we can look through our options and pick the next sound, which I think is going to be this mid-range bass sound. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we want to repeat that process. Select the scene we're just working on. Do capture and insert. And I'm stopping it. I pressed pause and stop here so I could talk and you could hear what I was doing. You don't have to. You could just keep adding scenes and dropping them on the fly. So Vladu, let me know if that answers your question. That's the basic technique is this A scene that was our very original idea. Let's make it pink. That actually contains everything we need for the intro and the outro and the main drop section all right here. We're going to create the different song sections by muting parts, subtracting away from the ideas, and then as we arrive at the climax, we're going to say like we want to have everything in on here. Oh, at 8. Oh, sorry, B scene. So let me know if that makes sense. What did Ricardo say? Intro, introduce the same elements. Outro, you start to extract elements away for the DJ to be able to mix. That's the way I do it. Yeah, at the end of the song, it's the same thing. If you're in the, let's say you wanted to end with this B section. I'm going to make a copy of that that's going to be called B ending. I'm going to put it all the way down here so I know I'm in a new place. I'm not going to get lost. Now I'm going to build an ending by subtracting elements and making a new scene where every scene has one less element. Let's do that. What do I subtract first? Type in an answer if you have an idea what track you want me to mute first. I know what I'm going to do, I think, but I think it's going to be that one. So let's drop a new scene with no cymbals. I like that melody, but not these mid-range chords. So now we got the melody, the bass line, some beats happening. Let's mute this Let's mute that guy next. That kick isn't supposed to be in right now because I didn't finish editing it yet. Let's cut this guy, why not? Drop a new scene. Now we're down to the melody line, 2 drum loops, and a bass line. Maybe, I think bass line is going down next. And finally, I'm gonna add one thing for our ending to signal that a change is coming. A new scene with this build-up thing. And at the end of that, I want to have this. And these are all going to be legato mode, which means they continue from the place they left off. So now, from our B ending, I can play through all these different scenes going downwards, and we'll have the end of the song. It works the same if you're building an ending, building a build-up, whatever you're doing. I'm going to rush through these and play them like 2 bars at a time so we don't listen to literally 8 bars of each one, because that would take a couple minutes. Here's how we go. 3, 4. And the idea is that as soon as you feel like something needs to change, you can make a new scene and get there. Let's play through all these and see if it feels kind of natural. Switch! One, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. And now we're coming towards the build-up ending. And we're going to end the last sound is going to be that little melody. And then we end with this little sound that you could just fade out or filter out or do something with. So Vlado says, yeah, basically capture and insert creates a new scene with all the clips that are playing. Exactly, that's exactly what it does. And the entire strategy of what we're doing is building a track by using multiple scenes. That feels like a camera moment. Building a track by using multiple scenes. Okay, so you think every scene going down is going to be a slightly different variation of what's happening. And when you're done, you can play your whole song using the scene launch buttons on the master channel. That's it. Now you can go into, you can go into session mode and like fire different clips as you want to for improvising. You can tweak effects and volume, but the strategy of what we're trying to do here is develop an interesting song form where as you make progress across time, you're just playing different scenes. So at the top of your session is the first sound of your intro. As you go down, you hit the intro, the build up, the drop, a little break, a main peak. And by the end of the session at the bottom, you're at the end and it's done. And you could literally play your song by just firing each scene, counting 8 bars, and going down through your whole session. Maybe some of them are 4, maybe some are 12 or 16 or 1 bar or whatever. We'll get to all that kind of stuff. But that's the idea, okay? We're launching scenes, making our track happen that way. And for a super preview of what else to do, this is where the real magic of Ableton happens. If I like my arrangement and I want to play a song like that, I go like this. Pow. Play my intro. Play my build up. There's my drop. There's my drop. There's my other drop. I'm super rushing this. There's my chorus part. And there's my ending. The shortest song you ever heard in your life. Just demonstrating, you can always go to the arrangement, record your whole track in there. So after we build it in session view, you can record it into the timeline, do your final automation in here, and make a final mix that's like perfectly done for your album version. So I'm not telling you to never use the timeline. I'm just saying don't start in the timeline, because when you want to like make adjustments, you think, oh, I should have had that hi-hat was not here. Oh, am I going to mute this here? Maybe I want to copy this one, double that one. Like, for me, that's just too much mental editing, and I have to think like, oh, is that going to sound good? I don't want to think about that. I want to know it sounds good by playing through it in session view. where I can actually hear it in the moment, in the flow. All right? Oh, thanks for the answers. You gave me some really helpful info. Cool. I'm glad to hear that. I know I skipped around a little bit, and I'm gonna stay on here and finish doing this kick drum. But let me go to la la la. I want to jump into the member site quick enough to show you where to get these hands-on lessons if you haven't done this before. Okay, so this is the Mix and Texture member site, and I think I'm logged out, right? I'm in preview mode. Log out. Let me log out so you can see it the way I would see it. There's the front page. Enter as guest. And this is all free. You can get a free membership. There's no credit card required. I want you to be able to grab these lessons and do them. So here's Escape the 8-bar loop. You click on Learn More. These are all set to pay what you want because I want us to all survive this quarantine creatively and not be thinking about being broke. So forget about the money right now. If you got some cash, you know, I'm happy to accept it, of course. But click on Pay What You Want. Type in 0 and agree to terms of service, and you can get this Ableton Live pack. Let me show you what that looks like when you grab it. And I am going to open this up again to finish EQing that kick drum because I know you all want to see that. So Escape the 8-bar loop, Module 1, bus groups. The fun thing about these, I call them session lessons. Oh, Gabor says, let's make a 1-hour set with 8 seconds of the most popular tracks. Right, girl talk style, totally. So right here, what we're looking at is something I call a session lesson. It's an Ableton project, and when it opens up, you've got instructions right here. Check this out. Hey, it's Steve Knotts. Welcome to Escape the 8-bar loop. This is Module 1, and it's all about bus groups. So you can hear that sounds different. Here's me right now on the live video. I actually recorded instructions inside of Ableton, so you know what to do. Go to the next page. So the pages are on the sidebar. It says in this lesson, here's what we're going to do. Why do we use bus groups? And then next page, page 2, this matches up with the page 2 scenes, right? What are bus groups? Activity. Activity, open the track in-out view. You can see that the audio 2. So I give you stuff to actually do inside Ableton so you can learn by doing it. And what do we have? Does this look familiar? Oh, a low bus, and it's purple. Instrument bus, it's green. Percussion bus, it's yellow. Well, what do my tracks look like? Oh, kick drum, sub bass, bass line, those are low sounds, right? Those are going to be in the low bus. What's over here? Bass double keyboard solo. Do I want to hear this? Yes, I do. Let's play it. Oh, check that out. All right, so my instruments are green, right? I got a bass and a keyboard. Low bus sounds like kick drum and sub. All right, what's over here? Oh, obviously those are drums and they're yellow. So everything we just did in this live video on a different session, you're going to be able to do it here inside Ableton with this project with a bunch of loops to start with, instructions telling you what to do, and then actual activities. Activity, let's make a stereo drum mix. Pan channel 6 to the left, pan channel 11 to the right. Oh my God, what? Are you serious? Look at this. I want to start. I want to start doing this lesson right now. So go to the member site, grab Escape the 8-bar loop, get this module 1, and do it tonight because tomorrow we're going to start on the next step of editing MIDI loops, editing audio, expanding our ideas into longer sections. And I want you to be caught up. So you can do each of these modules. I don't know how many pages each one has, but that doesn't really matter. Usually they take about a half an hour to go through the instructions and get down to the bottom. We even have some review because I actually want you to learn this stuff. And then next one it says like go to module 2 clip stacks, which is for tomorrow. So I love these. I'm really proud of these lessons. That they're a totally revolutionary way to learn because you actually learn by doing it, and that's what it's all about. But let me go back and finish EQing. I want to make a low subby kick drum. So I have my sub bass and kick on the purple channel, and then my beats can be kind of like that upper frequency beat sound. Vlado said, I didn't know you can do that. Yeah, man. Lots of stuff you can do in Ableton. Wow, it's almost an hour in here, but, you know, okay, so I taught you what I wanted to teach. Now I get to play around and do some kick drum tweaking. What channel was I even on when I first made that? See, now I'm getting disorganized again. I'm going to have to fix this whole session. All right, I don't want to hear my instruments. I don't even want to hear my drums. I want to hear my kicks. And we were in the middle of EQing. We just finished cutting out those gross mid-range sounds, and we were about to do band 5 to boost up some high-end click on there. And maybe I'll go to band 8, take this down. I'm gonna do this old trick. You know when you exaggerate a shelf EQ, it kind of makes a bump in the opposite direction. So let's turn off band 5, skip back up to 8, exaggerate that, and roll it down. So now band 8 is doing two things. It's cutting off the high end, or lowering the high end, and giving us a little bit of a bump for that kind of a little clicky sound around 2 kilohertz or something like that. And of course, I left some space down on bands 1 and 2 to get dirty and deep down here. And I'm still looking for places to cut, because I know that down here, that's no problem. I got plenty of that. But over here, around 160, we make a tight little notch right there, because now I'm band 1. Gonna go with the heavy hitter. Oh man, I keep grabbing the wrong one. Super exaggerate that. Wow. And I'm not adding 18 dB of low end or 15, maybe just about 2. And actually, what would happen if I put this before the auto filter? Now I can boost up my low end, get a lot of heaviness down at the bottom, and still cut it off up here around 50 hertz, right? Now that's what's happening in our spectrum. If I bypass that, ooh, that's a pretty good difference, right? Let me know if you can hear the difference on that. Type in kick if you can hear the difference with the EQ coming on and off. And remember, we still didn't even hear it in the mix. I don't know if that Band-Aid's working for me. Adding a little bit of a bump right around there. Now let's do some squash. Remember to turn down the makeup gain before you kick in a compressor so you don't jack your head. Daniel says kick. All right, good. Glad you can hear that. I'm gonna do long release time. Not 10 to 1. Do I want the soft clip on there? And how's my routing? Do I want master? No, I want this going to my mono lows group so I can mix the levels. Auto filter number 2. A little weird trying to do this in headphones, but kind of getting there. And now my sidechain doesn't have to come from the beats, I can have it come from the kick. let's put this back in the mix. That's without that. And then, whoa. Let me know if you can hear the difference on that. It feels like almost like there wasn't even a kick drum in there before. And since this one's done, I'm gonna roll this all the way up to like 125, 120. So I can have this nice noisy rattling kick drum in this break loop up here. And this one doesn't have to hold the weight of the whole low end anymore. It can just be like kind of a floppy blop blop thing. And when I want to hit a drop with the main kick, it's gonna come in the mono channel. And I'm probably gonna work on the EQ some more after I'm in the speakers, not in the headphones, because it'll sound different in the main speakers. And what happens, get ready for this. Ah, that feels so much better, doesn't it? Yes, cool. Sorry if I'm turning red on your on your monitor. I just looked over on the screen and my master is red. And let's just go back to our A section and hear that kick drum. All right, there we go. I could do this all day before I fall into some kind of like live dub mix situation. Let me wrap this up. It's been about an hour. Thanks for watching, everybody. So what did we do today? We talked about the basic, simple, dumb stuff that's so annoying, but it allows you to make progress. You got to get organized. You got to make a decision. This is the loop I'm going to work with. I'm going to delete all the other stuff. You save all the clips that are important from that loop. Like you saw me make that mistake where I deleted that one resampled sound. You don't want to do that. So take all the clips you want, make one scene at the top with the clips you're going to work with, and say that's your starting 8-bar loop. Delete everything else, label your tracks. Color code your tracks after you have them in groups. So you know your low end stuff is over here, kick, drum, sub bass. Drums are all in one group. Instruments are all in one, you know, like visual group. I don't mean you have to actually like Command G and group them into one group. You could if you want, but you don't have to. Just get them in one place so you can find them and put your finger on the exact sound you want when you want it. Tomorrow you'll see why that's so important. We're going to take each one of these clips and extend them so that something happens. So there's some variation. So instead of just a never-ending loop, it comes to a little moment and then it comes back to the beginning. So you can hear, oh, it's building up, there's some tension, and then it gets released. And at that moment of tension and release, you can drop in a new sound. Like I was doing where I was adding a new scene, and every new scene you get a new sound. We're gonna work with all that stuff this week, building this thing out into a complete track, and hopefully by Friday, I'm gonna have a big fat master scene full of sections that I can play through from start to finish, tweak some effects, and have some fun with it, and it's gonna sound like a piece of music that I could perform on stage, or I could press a global record up on top, play through the whole thing by feel, standing up in the groove like this, you know, like playing like this from here and here, not sitting down like this on the mouse, doing Command C, Command V, and watching the timeline and trying to wonder if it's gonna be interesting at the end. I don't like to work that way. The only time I'm gonna really use the arrangement is after I record the whole complete song in, and I start listening and I think, yeah, I need to just touch up how I, did the effects at that section. So I'll automate a little bit. Or maybe I'll maybe mute something if there was a little too much of one sound and, you know, the mute was not, whatever. Final automation, detail automation, that's all perfectly cool, and the arrangement is totally cool. Don't let me say never to use the arrangement, because that's not what I mean, but we're going to start in session view, build out our track, and arrive at the arrangement later. Dan Pratt, Steve, rep your Patreon real quick. Thank you, Dan. I actually didn't think to do that, but let me go back to screen share. So here we are at the member site. I would love for you to join up and donate monthly to support me in what I'm doing. So there's the little X button. So at the top of this site, support Mixotexture on Patreon. A little bit makes a big difference. Click in there. I don't know if you used this before. It's new for me, but it's kind of cool because it lets you sign up for like $2 a month, $3 a month, something like that. I'm looking at the admin side. You'll figure it out when you get there. And you can just make a couple little donations that'll really help me a lot by supporting me to make session lessons and make more of these videos and things. Pay what you want. This is how you can show your appreciation for track feedback and live video streams in the Mixotexture Facebook group. Thanks for being part of our community, and I really do mean that. This community has changed my life for the better so much. I was, if you don't know, I started making music in 1999. I had a DJ career from like 2007 until 2015, I guess, 2014, where that's all I was doing. I was playing like 5 nights a week, doing live electronic shows, commercial DJ gigs, playing with bands and doing like soundtracks for theaters. I mean, every possible way you could use Ableton, I was doing that to make a living. And then on my off nights, like 2 nights a week, I'd work as a sound man, doing concerts with mics and bands and stuff, living nocturnally, sleep until noon, eating pizza at night on the street, you know, 2 a.m. and everything. And that was my community back then, but now I'm all online. I'm not nocturnal anymore. I'm not performing every night. I'm not getting drunk at every show like I used to with everybody else. It's a much better place to be in, and this online community is what keeps me going. I totally love being connected with all y'all, hearing your tracks in the track feedback section every week, seeing your questions online, being connected with people literally all around the world, from here in the US to the West Coast, to the East Coast, to Europe, to like Mongolia, literally. We have a friend in Mongolia. And it's much more satisfying for me to make lessons and hang out with you all online and share tips and tricks. It keeps me motivated to work on my music and get it done so I can, you know, have some fun with that. And I'm happy answering questions when you send them in and tell me what you want to learn. So Patreon, click it, hit it, support me. And if you want to pay what you want on the Escape the 8-bar loop, you know, buy the course, $10 a month, $25 a month. If you can afford it, I definitely appreciate it. That's all for now. Tune in tomorrow for part 2 of Escape the 8-bar loop. Thanks so much. Thanks, Dan, for telling me to do that. All right.